Hello and welcome to the Healing You Method. I'm Gloria Lybecker, and I have a special treat for our viewers today. I've met someone that I think is pretty special, and his name is Jos Willard. It's Jos Willard. I practice saying it different ways, but
It's okay.
Who he is. Yeah, so he is a remarkable business coach who combines world-class coaching with proven business building strategies. And he helps people to create the practice of their dreams. And he uses methods that really work for them and also works for their ideal clients. Another thing that he offers is a podcast. And that podcast, you might want to note it down, is called Profit for Coaches. And this is a show that is for coaches and for coaches to be who want to work hard to make positive difference with their clients. So welcome, Jos.
Well, thanks, Gloria. It's good to be here. Thanks so much.
What I'd like to start out with a few questions.
Sure.
Would you share with me what inspires you to do what you do and to keep doing what you're doing?
For me, most of the time where my jolt comes from, where I will be excited for the rest of the day, where I get my energy, is when I have a conversation with a client or I work with a client and they have a breakthrough. Something positive happens. Oftentimes we're working through either a mindset issue, or we'll be working through a particularly sticky business issue, or a strategy that just hasn't been landing or working for them, or something they've been stuck on. And then, within 45 minutes, the giant aha moment happens. Oh, this is great. This is perfect. This is what I was looking for, or I totally didn't think about it this way. And they go get results. And then they come back to me and like, this is what I did. And it totally worked. Right. So that's, for me, that's the big thing, is making that difference for the other person, for my client.
Yeah, cool. So what is it that makes you different from other business coaches out there?
But depending on how you talk, I think two things. Number one, I never intended to be a business coach. I've tried to get away from it, but I keep coming back to it, and I've stopped trying to get away from it. I stopped trying to get away from it like 10 years ago. But I think probably one of the big things that makes me different is that I think the coaching industry sucks. And it's not, and when I say that, I always have to walk it back half a step. The coaching industry is amazing. Coaches can do amazing things for their clients. It's the world of transformational support, transformational leadership, that all kind of falls under that giant umbrella that is coaching. I think that's amazing. It can do some beautiful things for clients. And I think that there are a ton of amazing coaches out there that are not necessarily great at running the business of coaching.
Yeah.
And so they wind up not being able to help the many people that they're meant to serve. And what most people who are looking for some sort of help, some sort of coaching, wind up stuck with is a person who's not necessarily a great coach, but they've learned some sort of business system, whether it's a franchise or something like that has allowed a decent coach, a decent person who's better at running a business to be in business. And so I feel like I have nothing against those folks. They're great people. But I feel like the people who are amazing coaches could be helping so many more people to accomplish so much more if they only knew how to run a profitable business for themselves. Yeah. And the reason that I say the coaching industry sucks is A, you have that challenge, and B, the vast majority of people who are out there offering coaching or support or services to other coaches aren't really teaching coaching. They're not really coaching coaches. They're offering, here's how to sell high ticket products, or here's how to build a business where you're not the coach anymore. You're a business owner and your team is doing everything for you, or you are selling info products or video courses or things like that. And again, nothing wrong with that business model. It works just fine. But for the people who are amazing coaches and want to just have a good life, and a good lifestyle by helping the people that they're meant to serve, that they love serving, those are the people that I work with. Those are the people that I'm meant to serve.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know, maybe you could speak to the common myth around, and you're kind of talking about it, around the field of expertise of coaching and how to have a profitable business.
Gotcha. So that the field itself it's kind of almost a Wild West sort of thing, because there is no, when it comes to coaching as a term, there's not really any regulation around it. And I think that's a very good thing. I think pretty much anytime you bring in someone to regulate an industry and determine who's good, who's bad, what's right, how you're allowed to market, et cetera, you very quickly run into the possibility of the regulators becoming captured, not physically, but money talks, right? And there are a number of organizations out there that are working on creating exactly that situation. So I'm not huge fans, but when it gets down to the business of being a coach or transformational expert or a transformational supporter, in that expert space, the vast majority of people are what Michael Gerber would refer to in his book E-Myth, which actually E-Myth Revisited is the one that's out there. Long fun story about that. He lost the rights to his own book and had to rewrite it. But in his book E-Myth, he refers to technicians, managers, and entrepreneurs. And the vast majority of people are not entrepreneurs. The vast majority of entrepreneurs are not entrepreneurs. They have an entrepreneurial moment where they go, I should do this as a business. I can run a business. I can do this on my own. But what the vast majority of us are technicians. We're really good at doing a thing. And experts in particular, we've learned something specific or a group of things or a group of techniques. We have a way to help people. We're very good at that. And we want to go out and help people. We also need to make a living. We need to be able to feed ourselves. We need to be able to have a roof over our heads. We need to be able to support our families and have enough money to make a difference in the community and the world around us. Yeah. And where those two things collide is that we can't go out and spend a ton of time helping other people and not getting anything for it. And there is a segment of the population out there that absolutely resents that fact. And that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, throughout history, money or an exchange of services or an exchange of goods and value is what makes the world go around and allows people to accomplish what they want to accomplish. I'm a big believer that if you are that technician, if you're that expert, that coach, you shouldn't have to abandon that to become a business owner in order to be successful. Yeah. So you really only need to run a coaching business of any sort. You really only need three things. You need something to sell. So take a step back. Assuming that you have something to sell, you have an offer, you have something. So there are three basic things that you need, assuming, of course, that you have something to sell and people who are willing to buy it. The only three tools you absolutely have to run a coaching business are a way to talk to people. So telephone call, face-to-face, whatever it is, a way to collect money. So that could be cash, that could be some sort of point of sale system, however it is that you collect your money, and a way to take notes for yourself so that you kind of know where things are going. And that can be pencil and paper. You can run a profitable coaching practice with just those things, as long as you know how to do the four things that any coaching business has to be able to do. One, you need to be able to bring in clients. Two, you need to know how to manage your cash flow so that you can be profitable. Because if you don't have profit, you're just working to survive. And that when you're working to survive, you can't be a good coach. Number three, you need to have a delivery support system. So the business side of your practice needs to support you doing the delivery. Some of that might be automation. Some of that might be virtual assistant. Some of that just be systems in the way that you do things, but you got to have something there. And the fourth is, to be a good coaching business, a good profitable coaching business, you have to have a transformational focus. You have to be focused on, when you've sold someone on a transformation, you have to actually be able to deliver that transformation. I'm a firm believer that when you sell somebody something and you take their money, if you can't, at least in good faith, you don't have a strong belief that you can provide what you've promised, then you're just committing fraud, and that's not good.
Right. No, that's not good. Oh, well, so what's the biggest challenge that you see is facing people? I guess you've spoken to that too, in a way, but for you personally, in your role in supporting people and coaching people, what's the biggest challenge that you face, and how are you tackling it?
Okay. For me, it's the helping folks who want to be coaches or who are coaches, and especially people who have been coaches for a while, but they're constantly at that sort of bouncing between $30,000 to $50,000, $60,000 a year. It's getting them the message that you can actually make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 as a coach. You can do it legally. You can do it morally. You can do it ethically. As a coach, a one-person sort of business, if that's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. It's really difficult to get that message across sometimes, because everything out there, going back to why I think the coaching industry sucks, everything out there is, you got a 7-figure coaching practice. And the first message is you've got to get yourself out of the coaching. You got to take yourself out of coaching. And this is, business coaches tell our clients this all the time when we're talking about clients that want to scale up. You've got to get out of the business, stop working in the business, and start working on your business. Mm. And as a coach, that's not necessarily true. And the vast majority of business coaches are actually a little hypocritical on that, because most of them don't do that. They are the coach. They are their business. And that's totally fine. It's a perfectly acceptable business model. So what I do with that is sit down and show folks. Generally, I'll have someone, they'll listen to the podcast and they'll reach out to me. They'll email me, or I'll get introduced to them on LinkedIn, or a referral. Mm-hmm. And we'll sit down and we'll just talk about, okay, what are you doing now? Mm-hmm. What challenges are you facing? What would you like to be doing? And then I can usually show them in 15 minutes or less, here's how to get from A to B, mm-hmm. if that's what you wanted, right? And so it's a bit of a challenge in that, because I believe there's no one true way. I don't think that everybody has to have their same business done in the same format with the same business model, et cetera. I've created a bit of a challenge for myself in that I can't just go broadcast to the world, this is the way all of you can do it.
Right.
I can say, this is a way that many of you can do it. And I do that on the podcast. I talk about those things a lot. So how I have to overcome that is really just getting in front of people. I have a large network of folks that I'm connected to, and they'll put me in front of their audiences. So they'll say, hey, Jos, come in and talk to this group of people who are all coaches, or coach adjacent. So, your Pilates people and your yoga people and your health care folks. It's all, we'll sit down, we'll go, what are you doing now? Here's your business. Here's your basic model that you're using. What if you considered making this change or that change or this change, and it could actually get you these things? And then I show them how, if they made those changes, that could happen. So that's how I handle that challenge, is basically just showing people that it's real and it exists.
Yeah. So it's having a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's fundamentally, that's the heart of sales. That's the heart of marketing. That's the heart of relationships, is having that conversation where you interact as humans.
So what's one thing, as you've been on this journey yourself, what's one thing that your journey's taught you that you didn't expect to learn?
Well, depending on how far back you start with the expecting of things. If you asked teenage me, I think he would be shocked to have learned that he doesn't know everything.
Hmm.
The biggest thing is being able to ask questions, getting better at asking questions. That's the skill set that has improved most over time.
Mhm.
And I think it's a key skill set for coaches. There's one school of thought out there that believes that coaching doesn't, I want to say this carefully, coaching doesn't input, right?
Mm.
All coaching is giving the client the opportunity to find the answer within themselves, right? Or find the resource and then be able to process that resource and connect it to whatever is within themselves and bring that answer out. And that a coach's job is just to ask questions and help guide them to finding whatever that answer is, to not necessarily know or assume that we know what the answer is, but to help them find it, which is that approach I don't have a huge problem with. It's what has gotten coaching in trouble with therapy, with therapists, because old school talk therapy was basically the same thing. Now with cognitive behavioral models and stuff that's out, that's actually closer to coaching, which has blurred the waters even more, but it's okay. Blurred the lines, muddied the waters. I'll mix my metaphors. So that's one school of coaching. But in that school, if you subscribe to it, asking questions is the most important skill set you can have. How to ask questions as the coach. Now with your business, there's some other skill sets you need too, but knowing how to ask great questions. If you belong to the other school of thought, or just want to consider the other school of thought, in which the coach actually provides some direction, actually provides feedback and critique of how someone is doing something. This is the school of like athletic coaching, where you'll watch a client or an athlete doing their work, running through drills, whatever, and you'll spot flaws in how they're doing it and go, consider doing it this way. Try this drill, try that drill, and you work with them and you give them other drills to do to help them build whatever that skill set is.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a different approach to coaching, but you still have to know how to ask the right questions, because I can tell you, let's go with the athlete model again. If you were to take someone who is, I'll go with American football, because most people around the world can understand what that is. I start talking hockey. I live in Canada, so if I start talking hockey, half the world's like, what? So with American football or with rugby, if you were to take someone who's on the line, so right up front, and they're in there putting hands on the other person, and their job primarily is to physically move another large person around. If you were to coach that person and give them drills and give them training that were the same as a flanker in rugby or a receiver in American football, who are generally tall, thin, quick muscle response, their job is to run fast and far and catch a ball and have good hand-eye coordination. If you gave both of those individuals the same type of training, the same type of coaching, the same type of drills to do, you're going to actually wreck one of them. You're going to make it very difficult for them to do their job, just because the different types of trainings meet different kinds of needs. So you have to be able to ask the question, what is your need? What is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? How are you trying to accomplish it so far? What has worked? What hasn't? Have you always been 6'5" and weighed 175 pounds? Or those types of things. Because if somebody has always been 6'5" and weighed 175 pounds, it is likely that you're not going to be able to add a ton of heavy duty muscle to them. You can add some more quick snap muscle. You're going to it's not the best metaphor, but you need to know how to find what somebody needs and help them get to it. And the best way to do that is to know how to ask good questions.
Very true. I like your metaphor though. Yeah.
Thanks.
So when you take the time to look back over your life, who would you say had the most influence over the direction you ended up taking? And how did they impact you?
Combination. So I was always that kid in school that even people that, you didn't like necessarily, or they didn't necessarily like you. You were in different social circles for whatever reason. They would reach out to me to get advice or ask questions. And I never understood why, but okay. So that kind of started me down that road. And I actually was interested as a child in psychology. And as a school project, I went and interviewed a bunch of psychologists. Well, not a bunch, it was a small town, so two. One was a child psychologist, one was a general practice psychologist. And then my mom, who was basically the strong figure in our lives up to that point, she was diagnosed with MS when I was like 12, 13 years old. And it was the fastest progressing case of MS they had seen up to that point, late 80s, early 90s. And in 18 months, she went from, I've got some tingling on my left foot, to in a wheelchair, no short-term memory, and some personality changes and things like that. And because of that, weirdly, I had to go see a psychologist. They sent me to go see a psychologist. And the one that they sent in to talk to us, actually to talk to the family, was one of the ones that I had interviewed when I was a couple of years before. So that was interesting. But being on both sides of that, and then I'd had a friend in junior high who actually committed suicide, and they sent me to see a psychologist because he was one of my best friends. So I got to see both sides of psychology and how all of that works, and into that sort of world. So that had an effect on me, and being sort of open to or sensitive to listening to people and asking questions and sort of trying to help in the best way I knew how as a teenager. Joined the Army to get out of Alaskan winters, and was trained to jump out of airplanes and blow up tanks. But when I was assigned to Korea, and while I was there, I had hurt my knees, and they assigned me temporarily to be the chaplain's assistant. There's a whole bunch of that, but long story short, a chaplain's assistant is actually a counseling role. So I dealt with the interfaith prayer group. I dealt with the AA group. I dealt with a bunch of soldiers that needed counseling for different things. I had no training in any of this other than my background as a kid of, well, I've talked to people. I've had people call me at 2:00 in the morning that I don't know going, hey, can I talk to you? Somebody says you're a good person to talk to. So sure, we'll do that here. So did that for a while. And then eventually got transferred, became a training NCO, learned how to do training with large groups and some other things. And I went through a series of different sort of attempted careers, and that always sort of came back to teaching, training, counseling, just always where I sort of wound up. Then I met a girl who happened to be a Canadian, moved to Canada, met her dad. He worked in investments and insurance company, and he asked me to come see what his company did and his people did. I was like, okay. So I went to the training, and he knew I had a background in training and in interpersonal skills and things like that. And he showed me his training and said, what do you think? And I said, I think I want to keep dating your daughter, so I'd rather not give you my opinion of your company's training. And he's like, oh no, now you got to tell me. Okay, fine. So trying to shorten this story up a little bit. Long story short, he basically asked me to help train his group of investment and insurance professionals. And I was like, I'm not really it's not really my career, but sure, here's what I would do. Here's what I would change. And I taught them how to have conversations, how to ask the right questions, how to talk to people as someone who's there consulting and to help them. And over a course of about 6 months, they became the number 2 or number 3 shop in all of Canada for the company that they were with. So I did that. Then we got married to his daughter. We moved. I went to work for another company, wound up doing a turnaround. And again, it was all counseling, but I learned the actual international business side of things there and how companies interact. And then got a call from my father-in-law, came back to Calgary. He moved companies, worked with him there, where I got, because of him, I got trained as a business owner succession planner. So I worked with business owners on getting out of their business, how to sell their business and how to set stuff up. But what I consistently wound up doing was they'd come to me with a business that wasn't ready to be sold. And I'd say, well, you know what, work with me for about 6 months or a year, and we'll turn this into a business that somebody might actually want to buy. And they go, great. And at the end of that 6 months or a year, 18 months at the outside, none of them wanted to sell anymore because they'd turned their business into something that they loved doing, that they enjoyed doing, which was great for them, not so good for me because I would get paid on the back end if they sold the business. So at that point, I went and talked to my, at this point now, former father-in-law and said, this isn't working. I'm seeing more money walk out my door because I've done a great job coaching them for free than I'm making doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And he was like, well, then maybe it makes sense that you just go charge for being a business coach. And he's the one that pointed that out and said, you know, this is the thing you should probably think about doing. So he's between my mom, my experiences with different aspects of counseling and psychology, and then my father-in-law, A, getting me into working with business, and then B, telling me, hey, stop doing this and go be a coach. Those are probably the biggest direct influences.
Yeah.
But I've invested years and years of time and hundreds of thousands of dollars in learning from, you know, some of the best coaches, teachers, trainers, successful business people in the world. So they've all influenced me in some way or another. But I think if you were to go most recently, and if I were to say, where does my success to this point, it's like over the last 8 years, come from? At this point, I would have to say my wife, because when she met me, I was sleeping on my office floor because I'd gone through a divorce. I had, given my ex-wife the house. She had our 2 boys, and did the right things that you're supposed to be doing. Took a bunch of the debt, and was helping people for free, basically, not making the money that I should be making on the back end. My wife met me, so she definitely wasn't gold digging, and we started our relationship. And at one point, she said, "Things have got to change. If our relationship is going to work, things have got to change. You've got to be more successful in what you're doing." Not because she couldn't stand to be with somebody who wasn't a success, but because she could see that when I was struggling like that, I wasn't me. I wasn't able to show up the way that I should. And that's part of my whole mindset around working with coaches. If you're struggling for money, you can't show up as the person that you're supposed to be, and you can't help the people that you're supposed to help. And so when she kind of put that ultimatum in front of me, and I realized, you know what, it was funny because I couldn't do it for myself. But as soon as this relationship was at risk, all of a sudden that flipped the switch, and I made the changes that I needed to make as far as the way I was approaching my practice, and have consistently earned more money every year since then, building my practice and helping more people. So
so it was a really powerful motivator for you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you. I just loved getting to hear that story. And I just want to acknowledge that it sounds to me, as you moved through that the motivator in your life were those relationships. And actually seeing how they were reciprocal relationships that were really important.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to summarize that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if we pivot just a little bit, I'd love to get you to share with our viewers, what is your favorite childhood memory?
Ooh, favorite childhood memory.
Yeah.
So if we're going young childhood, I might have been 10. I don't even know if I was older than that, but my family traditionally would, every summer, my mom's parents would drive up from Montana, and they'd bring their camper, and we'd all go live on the beach. Basically, it's a campground with a beach, and the parents would all the aunts and uncles and the parents would go and we had a little inflatable 16-foot boat with a motor, and they'd go out fishing in the ocean. And sometimes my grandfather would go with them, and sometimes he would stay back. And one day he had stayed back, and he was fishing, just standing at the beach where the shore comes up, where the water was coming up, and he's just out there fishing. And he'd been fishing for, I don't know, a few hours or whatever. And finally, he just, like, in disgust, "There's no fish biting out there." And I'm like, "Well, can I try?" He's like, "You'll waste your time, but here." So he gives me his pole, and he goes stomping into the house or into the camper. And I, just this little kid who didn't know what I was doing, just went out there and threw the thing. And I think the story goes, because I don't fully remember all the details, but the story goes, I was out there for less than 5 minutes and caught a big old fish and came in. It wasn't the biggest fish ever.
Right.
It was just a little Dolly Varden, but it was still pretty big for a Dolly Varden. It means coming out of the ocean in Alaska. The fish are all big up there. And I go up and I'm knocking on the door of the camper. I go, Grandma, I got this fish just dangling. And she opens it up and she's like, "You caught a fish." And I just heard my grandfather in the back just explode. "What? No way." So he came back. He's like, "All right, my grandson's a fisherman." So that was a fun one for me.
That is a fun one. I love hearing that. And then on a personal note, if you're willing to share, I'm just curious, what does it look like for you, your morning routine of just preparing yourself for your day?
I'm not one of those people that has a good solid morning. I'm not up at 5 o'clock in the morning doing my exercises, taking advantage of the fact that everyone else in the house is asleep. I'm not really that guy. So I get out of bed probably a few hours before my wife. But that means 7 something. My wife's, but my wife deals with a head injury and stuff, so she sleeps a little bit longer during the day. She needs to. So I'll get up. I don't eat right away. I usually won't eat until 10 o'clock or so, between 10 and noon. Depends if I have a call or something scheduled at 10 o'clock, then I'll just go with it. And then all of a sudden it'll be noon. I'm like, "Oh, right, I should go eat something." So I guess intermittent fasting is a thing that I do voluntarily or not most days. Because I usually stop eating around 8 or so the night previous. So I'll get up. I won't eat anything until around 10 or so. I'll drink warm water or an herbal tea or something. And then just room temperature water or slightly cold water. And I'll come in and I'll do some stretching. And I'm a religious guy, so I pray, which is pretty much the same as meditating as far as most folks go. So that calm kind of setting of the mind in the morning, I'll read some scripture, some good books, some things to help I'm not doing it to get my mindset right, but it does help with that. Help me to think about things beyond this immediate moment and what my goals are for this next thing. When I'm praying, it's, like I said, it's very similar to meditating as far as I need this, I need that, blessing with these things, but it's I know that the blessings are out there. What can I do today to prepare myself to receive them and to see them and to experience and be part of miracles? Because I believe in those things. If you're a person who doesn't, you could absolutely spend that time asking yourself and setting your reticular activating system, your brain, on, what can I be alert for that will help me be more successful today? How can I find opportunities to be helpful for people? Train your brain to see those things. So wherever you are on what I call the woo scale, 1 to 10, 1 being hard science. If you can't physically touch it, it doesn't exist. And 10 being, the universe is energy. Wherever you are on that scale, it doesn't really matter. The principles are the same. It's just how you're telling yourself it happens. So that's I've got a podcast episode on that actually. But the point is, spend some time getting your mind, your brain into that space that is more than just, what have I got to do right now? Then I'll come into the office, fire up all of my stuff. I probably shouldn't check my email as soon as I do. in the daytime. But I try not to respond to email right away unless there's something urgent, like client telling me they've got to cancel for the day or reschedule for the day or something like that. I'll respond to those. But other than that, I'll just sort of let it go. Pull out my list of what are the things I'm working on. I have in front of me behind my camera, I have a 6-week game plan on the wall. I've got a breakdown of activities and such for the next 3 months. And I've got some, nice pictures of things that help to inspire me. So I'll look at that for a little bit, and then I'll pull out what are my plans for the day. I'll check my calendar, what's actually on the schedule, get the mindset, and then go downstairs, walk around a little bit, get my water. I think I'm a moving thinker. I'm a kinesthetic learner. So I think while I'm pacing and kind of do that. And then I come back up to the office, sit down, and I usually have a call to start the day. Or if it's certain days where, because I have 2 days a week, I have a 5-hour block that I've set aside where I just go into work on the business stuff. And one of them is Monday mornings. So I won't have a call that day, but I'll come in, sit down and just dive in. Mm-hmm. Fridays are the other day, and Thursday's the other day, and I do that in the afternoon. So I usually will have a call Thursday morning. So usually what starts my day off, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, my day starts with a call.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for giving us a little insight into how you kind of motivate yourself, keep yourself on task. And I love the visuals that you referred to that you have that can really kind of stimulate some ideas for some of our viewers as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to highlight that would support people that are listening? Anything that really stands out to you?
I think probably just like one of my fundamental truths is this: that's not a fundamental truth about business. If you're going to be successful as a coach, as a healthcare practitioner, as someone who supports others in creating positive transformation in their lives, the single most important thing that you can do to help the people that you're meant to help is open your mouth, is talk to people and give them the opportunity to say yes to you. So that doesn't mean go pester all of your friends and family to buy your thing, to coach with you. Hey, can I coach you? Right. It's being willing to say, hey, we've a friend you have tea with, say, once a month, and it's been 6 months and they've talked about the same problem over and over again. It's this thing that you can help them with. Maybe month 6 is the time to say, we have tea every month and I love having tea with you and I don't want that to change. But you've talked about this thing every time we've had tea for the last 6 months, and it's obviously a concern to you. And I'm not sure if you know, but this is an area that I work as a coach or as whatever it is that I do. And I think I could probably help you. Would you be open to letting me help you? And they can say yes or no. And if they say no, then it's like, great, I just thought I'd offer. Do you want to look at the dessert menu? Right. And if they say yes, great. Now you have an opportunity to help someone that you may be meant to serve. On my podcast, every week that episode comes out, it says, go to my website, take advantage of one of the free things that I have available for you there. Or I'll say in the podcast, email me, jos@profitforcoaches.com, and with your question, with your problem, and I'll happily see if I can help you. And then when I talk with someone, I don't do a sales pitch. I'm not about trying to convince people to work with me. But if in talking with them, I go, okay, here's the solution, or here's the thing that you're looking for, or it looks like you're going to need to do this thing. It turns out that that's a thing that I help people with. Are you interested in getting help? If they say yes, great. Would you be interested in that help being me? Because, you're kind of an ideal client for me. This is what I do. And they say yes or no. And if they say no, that's great. Because for me, when someone's working with me, it has to be an absolute heck yeah for both of us.
Yeah.
or it's not going to work. If either of us is like, maybe not, then it's a no for now. And that's totally fine. And it doesn't hurt my feelings, because there are way more people out there that need help than are the people that I'm supposed to help necessarily. And it's the best way that I can help those people that I'm not supposed to help, or that I'm not the solution for, is to help them get to the person who is their solution. But none of that can happen. None of that process can occur if I'm not opening my mouth and giving people a chance to say yes to me. So if you're calling, if you feel moved, if whatever it is that drives you to be in the coaching world or the expert world or the transformational world, whatever it is that drives you to do that, if you feel that pull, the best thing you can do is once a day. And if you want to take weekends off, fine, I don't care. But once a day, give someone the chance to say yes to you. And it doesn't have to be to buy your thing. It can be to sit down and chat. It can be to discuss something. It can be to take a walk together, like whatever it is that helps move that conversation or move that relationship forward. Just give them a chance to say yes once a day. It'll make the biggest possible difference in your coaching practice.
I love that. That is so practical and so needed. And just for people, it would give them more of a skill set or grow their muscle and of confidence just in engaging in conversations without having an expectation of what it's going to look like at the end.
Absolutely. If you have a lot of folks who have to sell things for a living, which as coaches we do, we have to sell working with us to a certain extent.
Yeah.
We have this horrible fear of no.
Yes. Over the top fear.
Yeah. And we also have tied to that in the back of our minds, we feel like if we're talking to somebody that we could help and we're starting a conversation and we know that we'd like to help them, all of a sudden that starts this ticking time bomb in the back of our head. And we feel like if we don't ask them, the bomb will explode, or that the bomb is the ask. And that if we ask them, we're giving them the button and saying they're either going to push the button and blow us up and our ego goes out the window and all those, different things. It's like, you can get rid of that though, if you turn it around. And one of the tools or techniques that I will use with clients is the no jar. So take a jar or a bowl or a Costco mint container, whatever it is, something big enough, and then get yourself 100 little slips of paper. You can use, I wouldn't use sticky notes for this because I just grab my sticky notes. I wouldn't use them for that because they'll stick, but you can print it out on a sheet of paper and then cut them or use index cards, whatever. But just 100 things that represent, you can write the word no on it if you want. That can be very helpful, but 100 things that represent no's. And your goal is every time somebody tells you no, you put a counter in the jar. And when you get 100 no counters in that jar, when you've collected all 100 of them, then you can give yourself a reward. And that might just be going out for an ice cream, or it might be going for a hike or a weekend in the woods or at a motel, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever reward that feels appropriate for you. But give yourself, the goal is you have to collect 100 no's. And it's better if you put some limits around the no's, like they need to be business related no's.
There you go.
Otherwise you collect the 100 no's real fast. But if you say, I'm going to collect 100 business related no's, I'm going to give people a chance to say yes or no to me. Now it's not a chance to say yes. Now I'm giving someone a chance to say no to me multiple times a day, because if I only do it once a day, it's going to take at least 100 days to collect those no's. Right. But if I can do it twice a day now, where it's a month and a half, right? So, and then you go out and you're looking for the no. You're like, hey, listen, it is totally cool to say no to me. All right. But would you be interested in working with me as a coaching client? And they'll say no. And you're like, yes. You go, collected another no. Right. But then frustratingly, some of them will say yes. Yeah. And now you've got a client. Right. And that's it. So now you've got a client to work with, and you've got to go ask somebody else so that you can collect another no, so you can get that reward that you want. And what winds up happening is either way, your life gets better.
Yeah, it does. And what you're doing energetically within yourself is you're bringing some play in. And when that play energy comes in, all of a sudden it makes it a safe playground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally switches it around. So I love that tip that you've given us. So what I'd like you to share now is, how can our viewers find you online? I'm sure there's people that are going to want to reach out.
There's lots of ways. If you're interested in the podcast, Profit for Coaches, spell out the word, profitforcoaches.com will take you to my website, and you can see the podcast there. If you're just interested in starting with the podcast, if you go to anywhere you find podcasts, so Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, all the places that play podcasts, just search Profit for Coaches. I'll come up. If you're interested in connecting with me directly, you can email me, jos@profitforcoaches.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Jos Willard, JosWillard. And you can message me there. I'm on Facebook too, and Instagram and all the other different places, but I don't really monitor them a whole lot. Your best bet is profitforcoaches.com, the Profit for Coaches podcast, or look for me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Josh, for being with us today. And thank you to all you viewers for taking the time to be with us too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're reaching out to me, you can find me at Gloria at healingyousanctuary.com is my email. And also that's where you can find my website. So I look forward to more conversations, and thanks for being with us today. Healing you.